Hello, hello. So, we can't really go watch shows right now, but I have faith. The shows must go on. The theater community is still putting out content online. Stars are singing and chatting and playing games with each other from quarantine in their homes. They're raising money for the COVID response and to support everyone involved in the theater industry, which my high school stage crew days can attest goes to way more than just the actors. Anyway, we will all be back to our lives eventually, and the current shutdown doesn't stop me from reviewing shows I saw before this all really hit the US. So put your theater hats on, because not long before Broadway shut down, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go see Jagged Little Pill. Jagged Little Pill is a jukebox musical, which is a musical that's built around pre-existing songs. It's usually, though it's not always, limited to a particular musical artist. So sometimes jukebox musicals are like biopics for the artist that all the songs are by, and sometimes they're more like original fiction utilizing the songs in a way that fits whatever story they're telling. So some popular examples of jukebox musicals that use pre-existing songs without limiting themselves to any particular artist would be like Moulin Rouge or like Glee. A more biopic type of jukebox musical would be like Jersey Boys, which both only uses music by and is about the Four Seasons. And then a more original fiction type of one artist jukebox musical would be Mamma Mia, because that uses all songs by ABBA, but it's not about ABBA in the way that Jersey Boys is about the Four Seasons. It's like its own story. For some examples from the current Broadway season, is it still the current season with everything being shut down? This has to affect the Tony Awards, right? Like, how are people even supposed to see the shows to vote? What about all the shows that were planning to debut in time for the voting and now can't? Broadway was already losing like a fuck ton of money this year after the Hamilton, the Springsteen bubble burst. Anyway, for some examples of not technically currently running jukebox musicals, there's the biopic style Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations, or the original musical Girl from North Country. That's not biopic, but that's all using Bob Dylan music. I haven't seen that show. Kind of sounds to me on the surface like a sort of a chorus line type show where there's like all these different people and they have different songs about themselves. But don't quote me on that because I haven't actually seen it. I know nothing. Okay, there's jukebox musicals on Broadway, sort of, right now. Moulin Rouge, Broadway adaptation of Moulin Rouge, that is a jukebox musical using songs by various artists instead of just one artist. And, of course, we've got Jagged Little Pill. So, Jagged Little Pill is one of the original fiction one artist jukebox musicals. It uses all music by Alanis Morissette. I admittedly don't know that much about Alanis Morissette. I think she was big in the 90s and the early 2000s. Probably her most well-known song today is Ironic. At least that's the only one I knew going in. It's one of those modern day dysfunctional family type musicals where we are introduced to this little family and all their troubles and the holding pattern that they're stuck in. And then something happens to shake things up. And we as the audience watch them rattle around and see how they come out the other side. And next to normal, it's the Goodman family, and Diana decides to go off her pills. In Dear Evan Hansen, we have the Murphy family, and then Connor kills himself. In Jagged Little Pill, we have the Healy family. And then there's a party. Well, I'd really classify Dear Evan Hansen as more of like the Little Shop type of musical. There's a character who gets a shady opportunity that looks like it could make everything better with their life and their work and their family and their crush, until Act 2, when the shady opportunity eats everything, including the crush, because of course it does. Jagged Little Pill is a lot more like Next to Normal than Dear Evan Hansen, but Next to Normal might be more like Dear Evan Hansen than Jagged Little Pill. Too many references, right? Most of you probably haven't even seen one or both of those. I do recommend them though. They're great. Anyway, Jagged Little Pill. Alanis Morissette music. Dysfunctional family-centric plot. So, what's unique in Jagged Little Pill? Let's start with the music. Like I said, I'm not very familiar with Alanis Morissette myself. In the 90s and the early 2000s, I was pretty exclusively listening to Disney movies, Aaron Carter, and Lucky by Britney Spears. I also sang Gary, Indiana from The Music Man and Little People from Les Mis a lot. Deeper themes of those shows escaped me, but lucky little kids. Anyway, me aside, there were definitely Alanis Morissette fans in the audience. Like, there was this cute old man next to me who was so excited. He definitely sang along under his breath a little bit at the beginning before he, entered theater mode. Don't sing along in theaters, guys. This guy stopped quickly, and he was mostly just mouthing along at first, so that was fine. But I know some of you are going to shows and singing along. Don't. Seriously, don't. I know you love the music. I love the music. I love singing the music at the top of my lungs. In the car. In the kitchen. Not at a show. Don't dance either. I've been to a show where people started dancing. Don't do that. Seriously. You are disturbing it for the other members of the audience. I will say that I had a fair amount of trouble understanding the lyrics. That probably would have not been the case so much if I had known the songs going in, but I feel like you should not have to know the songs. My friend, who also didn't really know Alanis Morissette music, said that she also was struggling with understanding the lyrics, so I know it wasn't just me. However, struggling to understand the lyrics didn't stop me from comprehending the emotions of the characters and the gist of those scenes. It's like Spring Awakening. I don't know what the fuck they're saying, but I still followed the story completely fine. They did make fun of Ironic for not actually being irony, because they had to. It's the law. So in typical jukebox musical style, they did a lot of really fun stuff with different characters singing different lyrics in the same song, or giving new meaning to pre-existing lyrics. I always am a big fan of that kind of stuff. I really liked it in Glee, and I'm watching right now Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Those kinds of shows give a lot of really fun opportunities for them to interpret songs in completely different ways. And something I really have to tell you about, the song You Oughta Know, it was amazing. It was standing O in the middle of the show. I'm not kidding. It was absolutely phenomenal. Okay, potential triggers. And in case it isn't clear,
spoiler alert.
I mean, these videos are always kind of spoilery in general, but yeah, spoiler alert. So, trigger number 1, and this is really big, you guys. Rape. And not just the rape itself, which is depicted, but also everything that surrounds that. Victim blaming, self-blaming, the way it can affect you for the rest of your life. There's discussion of people not believing survivors. There's talk about how people in higher societal positions are more likely to be believed on both sides. There's this part where she says, "What, am I just supposed to go say that Andrew Montefiore?" And we don't know the context of that name in the audience, right? We don't know who he is in the town. We don't know who his family is, or that his grandfather has a statue in the middle of town square, or if his family owns half the property. But we don't need to. All she has to do is say that line like that, and we just immediately understand. My friend Stephanie says that it's because it's too real. Like, our world really is like that. That's why we understand it immediately. And then they also go the other way in terms of people being more likely to be believed if they're like respected in the community or whatever. Like, there's another character who steps up to defend her, and she's kind of like, why do they believe you? Why did you have to say that it happened for people to think that it was real? Why isn't it enough when I say it? So, like, God. Next, also a biggie, drugs. That's probably implied by the title, but drug addiction. The effects that it has not only on the person, but on all the people around them and the people who love them. There is a depiction of an overdose, as well as of finding the person who's overdosed and of getting that phone call and just... And then there's also, like, there's a character who I'm pretty sure is non-binary, definitely non-conforming, and there's the homophobic parents, and at one point their mom like pushes them into wearing something very gender conforming, and the way that they just shake and huddle into themselves when they're wearing it and they rip it off, and the way that they say, "There, I wore it, are you happy now?" Like, I don't even care what I wear, and the amount of sympathetic self-revulsion I felt. So yeah, just potential dysphoria. Ahoy. Oh, and there's cheating in a relationship, not like in a game. I'm really sorry if that's a trigger for you because it's in like everything ever. But yeah. I know I always feel a lot of dread when I see a cheating plotline, and I don't even really have any personal experience with that. So the show has LGBT themes. There's a lot of social activism issues that at least get touched upon if they're not part of the main story. Like, there's protest signs and stuff like that. So that will mention a bunch of other social activism type issues. It deals with the typical dysfunctional family issues like mother-daughter relationships and the pressure that children feel from their parents and the struggles that couples go through when they're trying to connect with each other. Let's see, some of the notable features of this particular show. Well, I have to talk about the choreography. There's a lot of contemporary dancing in Jagged Little Pill. They utilize the ensemble as dancers that are sort of all over scenes of like only one or two characters. It's pretty interesting, I thought anyway. There's also at least two scenes where a character is like dissociating, I think, and they have a dancer come on to represent them in these really elaborate, provocative dance scenes where the other character, the actor playing the main character, is sort of watching from afar. And it's crazy impressive. My friend was like, this was such a great choice on their part. Oh, also, dancers are jacked. There were some other kind of cool things they did, like this one number. It's sort of going through characters' entire day completely in reverse, and that includes both scenes that we had seen earlier in the show and then other stuff that we hadn't seen, since it wasn't like plot relevant, but it was still part of her day. And I thought that they did that really well. That was really cool, the way they pulled it off. I always appreciate little staging details, like the character Joe sings the song "One Hand in My Pocket" early on in the show, and then later on during stressful confrontations and stuff, Joe has one hand in their pocket the whole time. That's my Dex tone. Michael in the bathroom. Okay, one of the scenes that I thought was done really well was, okay, so this is live on stage, right? There's no special effects editing or anything like that, but I feel like they pulled off this amazing portrayal of, how do I even swear this? You know how you hear about remembering something in pieces? So they did this thing with blackouts and flashes of light to sort of portray the rapid fire flashes of your consciousness of an event and time passing very quickly in between each little instance of something. And it was really freaking cool. I absolutely loved it. I am aware that everything I just said basically made no sense. But it's when they say you remember what happens next in snippets, that kind of thing. It's like they portrayed that very well, especially because they were doing it live. Like every time that it kind of blacked and came back, these actors had to like book it, I think, to get into their next position probably. But it was amazing. It looked great. Let's see, what else? My friend Steph pointed out that all these modern day shows now seem to deal with the influence of social media. Like it was in this show, it was in Mean Girls, it was in Dear Evan Hansen, it's in Be More Chill. Oh man, okay, I have to tell you a story about when I was watching this show. All right, so in the story, there's this boy, right? A love interest boy. And guys, I was so suspicious of this boy. I was like, why is he so interested in her? Why is he so invested in her poetry? Why does he keep talking to her? Like, why is he so immediately into her? This is suspicious. This is weird. Like, I was wondering how this was all going to go wrong. What's the deal with him? Why is he so obsessed with her? Is he going to take something too far and it's going to get really dark? Is he putting her up on a pedestal and then it's not going to be fair and then it's all going to come crashing down? I literally said out loud, I was like, what possible reason could a boy have to like a girl? My friend is laughing at me. She's like, I appreciate your immediate distrust of all men. And then I'm like trying to talk myself down a little bit. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just being paranoid. That's right. I have to keep reminding myself this does happen sometimes in musicals. In musicals, this happens sometimes where people just like each other. And my friend is laughing at me again. She's like, in real life too, Nicole. That's how heterosexual relationships happen. I'm like, can't relate. And just to wrap this up on a light note, my favorite line in the show goes to Jo. It's a line that she says about Phoenix to the Healy parents. And you will know it when you see it. All right. Till next time.